Hi everyone and welcome to podcast 24 from Football-Oranje. I'm Michael Statham and today I'm joined by James Rowe and Michael Bell, our Football-Oranje podcast regulars. On the menu today, plenty of discussion on the Dutch national team, the Scotland match, and also in the future, who's going to be manager? What do we want to see from our Dutch national team? Also, a bit of discussion on the Eredivisie. How are Final getting on? Why are PSV doing so well? As usual, we're on YouTube, SoundCloud and iTunes, so wherever you're listening, give us a like and subscribe. Comment below your thoughts on this week's podcast and also what you'd like to hear in our next podcast. Enjoy. Guys, what did you make of the Scotland match? The Netherlands won 1-0. It was far from convincing and the opposition wasn't quite at the same level as the Dutch. It was a good fight though. Michael, what did you think of the match? Did you think it was a fair reflection on the game?
Well, being Scottish can be a bit biased here, but I wanted Netherlands to win, but I also wanted Scotland to play well. I think I got that. I think I got Scotland basically put out a team with a lot of youngsters coming through, and that showed that they were a lot more keen, I think, to show themselves on the night. I think Netherlands just soaked up the pressure. One individual bit of brilliance by Memphis when he turned away to set up the counter-attack for his goal. A bit dodgy, a bit offside, but I mean that was enough for Netherlands. They definitely weren't at their best. They definitely didn't show enough. I think it raised a lot of questions than it did answers. Doing the player ratings afterwards, I couldn't really figure, who was the man of the match because there wasn't very many standouts. Daley Blind played a couple of good balls, and Memphis did one good thing, but he kept giving the ball away as well. I mean, then you got players like Strootman, Wijnaldum, Babel, Promise, just all weren't at their game, and I think if Scotland had a better striker, they might have came away with that with a victory.
I think they're grateful for the win, but I think the comments from Statham afterwards saying that the victory is only good for the ranking points, and that the fact they failed to qualify, or the fact they're not even taking part in the UEFA playoffs, means they have to play these types of games. And I think for some players that was a little bit disappointing. But I think they're grateful for the win. It's the fourth win in a row. They beat Sweden and Belarus and Bulgaria, so it's a platform to build on. And with an upcoming game away to Romania. But now attention's turned to this being Advocaat's last game against Romania, and then what the KNVB will do afterwards. Advocaat was a bit coy as to whether he was actually going to leave. I mean, he stated to the Scottish press that this would be his final two games, and then to the Dutch press he was a little bit coy, so that was a little bit strange. But I think he'll be wanting to go out on a high, so it'll be his third stint as a national team manager. And I just think they'll be looking to build on the form they've got, and then the appointment of the next manager is going to really be decisive as to how the national team goes forward.
Yeah, just a final point on the Scotland match. I did like how Memphis was a bit of a live wire. He offered that outlet and looks like someone who could be relied upon in future. We just need to see him build his consistency at club level, because he has blown hot and cold recently, but he is definitely pulling it together at Lyon nowadays. So the next match is Romania on Tuesday, and some people listening, maybe this might be after Tuesday. So what would you two like to see, not just from the Romania match, but just in future games now? What do we want to see from the players? What do you want to see from the squad? Michael, would you like to start on that?
Squad-wise, I'd like to see some fresh faces, especially in midfield. Again, it's three trusted Strootman, Blind and Wijnaldum against Scotland. I'd like to see it shaken up against Romania. Even Van Ginkel, you could argue that Van Ginkel's probably been one of the best players in Eredivisie this season. He scores goals, he's a bit more physical. You can add a lot more to the attack than I think Wijnaldum can at the moment. Even given Van de Beek his debut, he's been in the squad the past 3-4 times. He's not had a single minute yet, so what's the point in him being there if he's not going to play? Just shake the team up, just have a look at a few new players. Even going in the future, I want to see Frankie de Jong. I want to see players like that coming in, given a chance. Players that are hungry and are going to take this team forward going in the next few years. And I want to see a confident attacking performance instead of just sitting back, soaking up pressure, hitting on once, and then that's it.
What I would like to see is that players that are called up that really want to show they want to be involved with the national team. And as echo Michael's comments, really, you know, that fresh faces and new eagerness to kickstart the national team and to kickstart a new era, because there's a big rebuilding path ahead, which hopefully will culminate in eventual participation at Euro 2020. So they've got time to get things right, but that starts from the very top. But I just personally hope that the players that are involved and called up for squads and that kind of thing are given the opportunity to play, and especially if it's young players, put them in, even if it's coming on as a substitute, to get a taste of international football, to leave them wanting a little bit more, but for the squads as a whole to really pull together and say, right, now this is not going to be the case where for a third national team tournament that we're going to let this pass us by, and just a coherent squad that wants to represent the nation to the best of their ability, really.
You say that, James, about players that want to play for the national team. A question here from Dan on Twitter, who says, why are Eric Peters, Leroy Fer, Patrick van Aanholt constantly ignored from the national team? And there's a bit of there was a comment actually from Leroy Fer saying that I want to play for my country and I don't know why I've been left out. So James, why do you think that is?
I think in the case of Advocaat, I think he's just kind of he's plugging a gap which has been created due to lack of foresight. It's been created to behind the scenes problems where the national team didn't really have a certain direction, and he's kind of been parachuted in due to the ineptitude of people above him not being able to make a valid choice for a national team manager or to state this is the direction we want to go in. And I think in the case of Advocaat, he's just been plugging gaps where he's been selecting what he thinks is the best squad. I don't think he's ever really shown the want to really look long term and cast the net far and wide. I think Leroy Fer and Patrick van Aanholt have been extremely unlucky not to be called up. I'd also echo the sentiments of Bundesliga players such as Jeffrey Gouweleeuw and Paul Verhaag van Wolfsberg. These are very competent players that would also do a job at international level, and you hope that the next national team manager will cast the net far and wide and take their time before announcing any squads for any friendly games or competitive matches.
Yeah, certainly, and I hope that the next manager as well looks at these players. But who is this right man to deliver? This is a question that's everyone's lips, and Ronald Koeman has been touted as a favourite for it. Michael, would you pick Ronald Koeman? And if not, why not?
Out of the available manager, I think Koeman's definitely head and shoulders above everyone else, is the top choice. I mean, he wants the job before he got overlooked. He's the best candidate. He can come in. He has a relationship with some of these players already. He knows quite a few of them, like Van Dijk, Hoot. You know, he managed a lot of them at Feyenoord as well. He knows a lot of them. His tactics are right. His experience is right. And I think he can bring in an assistant manager. His brother, Erwin, will probably follow him. And that's the duo you want to see. I mean, other people are getting mentioned. You know, Dick Advocaat keeps putting Ruud Gullit forward. I mean, I don't think that's the right choice. Then there's Fred Rutten, who's been out of work for a couple of years, and then the other one's Frank de Boer. But I don't think, except for his brother, who keeps putting him forward for jobs, I don't think Frank's ever really showed an interest and really wanted to be a national team boss now. I think he's still a club manager now. So I think the easy choice is Ronald Koeman for the KNVB, but whether Koeman still holds a little bit of a grudge against him for overlooking him might make talks a little bit difficult, I think.
I think listeners of the pod for a long time will know that I've advocated Koeman eventually being a successor to becoming national team manager. I see a pattern in the fact of what Koeman did in the past with a very, very young Ajax side where they reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League in 2003, and a PSV side which went on to win the Eredivisie, and a final team that were very much in all sorts of trouble, but he managed to get the team to be able to compete. And I think if he is offered the national team job, that's the first thing he's got to do, is to mould a team of players that are able to compete at international level, and I think he can do it. But I think he must be given time, because no doubt his reputation would have been damaged by being sacked by Everton. Even if you go back into the past, where he was relieved of his duties at Benfica and Valencia, every time he's always been cast to one side and relieved of his duties, has always hit him hard. And I think in the case of the Premier League, I think it's hit the hardest. So I think if the kind of they do offer him the job, I think they've got to let him get on with it, and he also has to take his time in selecting the right players to start to build a team that can be able to compete.
In my opinion, I think Koeman needs a bit of time off before he can come into this job, and it's a good job that actually the KNVB said that they would wait to appoint the next manager before March. They was their target. Because I think he's done well at Feyenoord and Southampton for the reason that he's had modesty on his side. He's been working with two clubs that were working with a budget, working with the reality of bigger teams stealing their players. Now he's gone to Everton. Since he went to Everton, I just think that that modesty has left him a bit, and he's had the expectation on his shoulders, and perhaps a little bit of arrogance has creeped in, that maybe it'll be a bit easy for him to reach top 7, maybe even top 4, with having spent lots of money, over £100 million last summer. I wonder if that's hit him, and I don't think arrogance is what the Netherlands national team needs right now. It needs confidence, but there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And I just wonder if his way of motivating players will feed through onto the pitch. We don't want to see players thinking that they can beat any old team 3 or 4, 5, 6-0. They want to be able to beat any team, but realise their place in the rankings at the minute. They're not one of the top sides in Europe at the moment. They need to rebuild that reputation. He'd also have to work with some of the younger players. Michael, I know you've been watching the under-21s, the under-19s very closely recently. What's been happening with them?
Well, the under-21s, they won 8-0 the other night against Andorra. It's a result that, you know, it makes the Netherlands under-21s look good, but you have to think as well that they've started really badly in the under-21 qualifying group, and they lost to Scotland, who lost at home to Latvia at the weekend. They're second in the group now behind England. I mean, the talents that are coming through at that age level are massive. I mean, you see against Andorra, Frankie de Jong pulled the strings. He was incredible in midfield. You got Gus Tills playing so well for AZ. You got Kluivert on the wing. Sam Lammers up front. These are all players that you're looking at them and you're like, this is the future of the national team. Why are we so worried? You got St. Just in defence. Even going down to the under-19s, you've got so much talent now, especially in the forward areas. You just wait in a couple of years, because you think in maybe not Euro 2020, but 22, 24, these players are going to be right in their prime, and these are the ones that are going to get Netherlands back to being amongst the world's best. Even under-17s, under-18s beat Republic of Ireland 8-0 yesterday. I mean, these are huge results, and they show that Dutch football is not dead. It's just these players need to get time to come through and then just get the chance in the Netherlands, like the national team. Give Frankie de Jong a chance now. Give Van de Beek a chance. And if the wingers aren't doing it, why not call up Kluivert and get him embedded? Bergwijn as well. These are talents that are going to be part of the national team in the future, so why not get them embedded now?
Yeah, and I think Koeman that is one of his strengths, and it's bringing through these young players. And players like Frankie de Jong, Jurgen Locadia as well. These guys are playing very well in the Eredivisie. I think we should now maybe switch our attentions to the Eredivisie. There's been quite a lot happening recently, and we haven't really talked about it very much on our podcasts, mainly because they've been so far apart. I guess the main headlines are that PSV are by far and away the leaders of the league, and Feyenoord, champions last year, are sitting 6th at the moment. I think maybe a way of opening this discussion up will be to talk about Feyenoord, and we got a question from Gareth. Early in the season, I asked if Feyenoord losing some key players from a title-winning side would affect their season. Is this, and playing in Europe, now costing them in the league? James, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, I think the follower Gareth has got a point. I think playing twice a week in a relatively difficult Champions League group, I think it's taken a lot out of him energy-wise. and you can see in the points that have been dropped against NAC Breda and against ADO Den Haag that these were unexpected results, and which has shocked Feyenoord themselves. I mean, to sit 12 points behind PSV with only 11 games gone, there's still a long way to go, but I just think they've been a bit shell-shocked. They've been a bit shell-shocked maybe at the recovery time between playing an intensive Champions League match, maybe away in Napoli, and then having to get the motivation to go away to an ADO Den Haag team, or looking at their fixture list and maybe thinking, we were having to travel to the Ukraine, and then you get back in the early hours in the morning and look ahead to your next game and think, that's not quite the same, is it, with the Champions League rigmarole and the commercial, the special attention around it. So I think they've been a bit shell shocked, but there's still a long way to go in the season. And I think the signings they made with Haps and St Just, these are good signings that over the course of the season will see Feyenoord good. And I think once they're completely eliminated from Europe, I think in the second half of the season you'll see them slowly start to pick up pace again. I just think they've been a bit shell-shocked with the demands of top-class European football, and then the motivation to get back to the bread and butter and be able to perform well, really.
Well, I saw a couple of weeks ago, I saw Feyenoord play Pexville live. It was a 0-0 draw. I just think Feyenoord, just around the team, they've got so many players you think are very creative, but they're just not gelling together for whatever reason. They've got Jorgensen up front, should be banging the goals. They've got plenty of talent on the wings, Berghuis, Larsen, Boetius, and then you think their midfield would be a lot more creative than it is with Velhena, El Amadi and Turnstra, but I think Velhena's having a horrible season so far. How he keeps getting caught up to the Dutch national team, I don't know, because he's just not anywhere near the level he was last season. That's just what's making him suffer at the moment. There's no one at the level they were last season, and defensively obviously they're missing Botteghin and Van der Heijden. I think that's not helped at all. Even Brad Jones has been nowhere near what he was last year. Maybe the Champions League is taken out of him, but just in the league they're just not beating teams you expect them to hammer. Like even ADO Den Haag at the weekend, Feyenoord took the lead, but they just can't maintain it. Defensively they're not strong, attack wise they're not strong. And I think I can call it now and say they're not going to win the title. I know it's still early, but they're not going to make up that gap on Feyenoord, on PSV. Sorry, it's got to be between PSV and Ajax. And I even think Feyenoord might even struggle to get third if AZ and even Pexvola keep playing the way they are. It's going to be a battle for them.
Yeah, agreed. It's like a culmination of factors, isn't it, between all these defensive injuries that Feyenoord have suffered and players like Vilhena and Jones just being off form. It may be that there's a side of the fact that all these younger players have come in, St Juste for one. Maybe take time to adjust, Amrabat as well. They're playing okay, but they're not playing at title-winning level. I'm not sure what's more surprising, though, the fact that Feyenoord have done so poorly, or the fact that PSV have surprised everybody, because I for one, before the start of the season, fancied them to be outside the top three for long periods of the season. But they're by far and away leading the table. Why do you think this is, guys? Why are PSV doing so well?
One reason, Herving Lozano. I mean, you've got to say he's the signing of the summer. The guy's a sensation. He's going to be a big player. I even saw against Belgium for Mexico, he scored twice. He was amazing. And just the start he's had to the season is just incredible. Him and Locadia just seem to have formed this partnership. They seem to know each other's movements already, and it's resulting in goals. I mean, PSV are by far and away. I think it's 37 goals already in 11 games. It's averaging nearly 3 a game. In the front line, you can even add Luc de Jong to it. He scores like 1 goal in over 1,000 minutes, and they're still winning games because them two are just so on fire. And behind them, they've got Van Ginkel, who's playing really well, and Jorrit Hendricks. I know Shaka, who sometimes appears on the podcast, is a big fan of Hendricks, and was saying all last season that he should have been playing maybe even ahead of Guardado, and he's shown in the PSV midfield that he's up to the challenge, and the whole team's gelling. They're winning games, they're scoring goals. Defensively, they're not. It's a bit like the old Newcastle under Kevin Keegan. They're not very good defensively, but they'll score goals, so they can beat teams 4-3 5-2. It's incredible so far as how they are going forward. And I think that is just down to Lozano on the left, and even Gaston Pereiro playing in the number 10 role. I think Corky's just done really well with getting that team set up.
I think they've done ever so well to react to the disappointment of failing to qualify for the Europa League. I think once they failed to qualify for the Europa League, I think it shocked the whole of Dutch football, and it shocked PSV in particular. And a lot of people were worrying about, is this the beginning of the end of Cocu even? And they've reacted so well to win 10 of 11 games and have a goal difference of plus 24. I think it's very impressive. And I think with Philip Cocu as well, he knew the pressure was on. He's been there for 5 years. And the pressure, I mean, he stated it on many occasions in press conferences that this season in particular is the culmination of an eventual Eredivisie title. I think that's what everybody's working towards. I think they would have even sacrificed Europe. I mean, I'm sure they would have wanted to participate in the group stages, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they were eliminated by Osijek at such an early stage. But if you look at their squad as well, with Amzalar and Van Ginkel and Lozano, there is quality there, and I think this is the season where they all know that this may be the last full season where the nucleus of that PSV team is together, including the manager. And I just think everybody's pulling together and everybody's wanting to go full steam ahead to try and win that Eredivisie title and see it back in Eindhoven.
Yeah, there's stars such as Herving Lozano, Mark van Ginkel. They're leading the way on this title charge. And I think these will be two of our stars perhaps of the Eredivisie so far. This comes into a question we got on Twitter, and this person wants to know who are some of our stars of this season so far. If you look away from PSV and perhaps our top three in general, I've liked how AZ are coming along, and particularly Wout Weghorst, the striker, and in midfield Gustil. I tipped before the start of the season to shine. He only had a few matches last season where we could see what kind of player he was, and for me he's like Marcus Henriksen before he left to go to Hull City. A very good player, I think, in the making. A very good shadow striker to have around. Very threatening, but also just a very good midfielder to have. James, would you like to give us a couple of your favourites so far this season?
Yeah, the first one I'm going to say might be a little bit rogue, and some listeners might think when I say who's that, but Fabian Spokskleder van NAC Breda. He's the right back with number 2. I haven't seen him have a bad game yet. I had to do preparation for the Rijf Vloed interview, where I deliberately set out to watch on TV matches of NAC Breda played against Venlo and against Utrecht, and he really, really impressed me. And I think he's came through the youth teams at Ajax and AZ in the past, and even had a spell in Italy, and he really caught my eye, and I think he's definitely one for the future. I think I agree with you on Weghorst as well. It just shows what confidence can do, because there was the time when Weghorst first signed for AZ, where a lot of people had question marks about whether he could cut the mustard and whether he could do a job. But he's certainly proving them wrong. And I think to touch on another two, perhaps Labiat from Utrecht has scored a very important winner against Ajax in Amsterdam for Utrecht, and finally, Canon van Den Haag. I think being involved in the setup with Ivory Coast as well, and being a physical presence to help Ardo in their back line in securing results, I think can only see to serve them well, really.
For me, one of the stars that doesn't really get mentioned is Brandon Kuas of Heracles. He's just an outstanding winger. I don't understand at 25 how he's still an Almelo. He scored stunning goals. He scored one against Ajax, the winner earlier in the season. He scored a couple recently. Even when he's not scoring goals, he's involved. He won the penalty against Ado Haag, got an assist as well. They're talking about him even being near the national team of Netherlands. I know a few said that he shouldn't be selected because basically he plays for Heracles and he's not at a top club, so he should move first. And there's talk of big clubs from abroad and even ones in the Eredivisie. I can see him at a PSV or a Feyenoord. He's that good. Other than that, Denzel Dumfries of Heerenveen started the season excellently, got all the assists, but I think he's a very competent right back. He's shown at a higher level now. Really, it's strange that Pek Zwolle are doing so well and there's not really a standout there, but Yunus Mokhtar is doing really well. Even the young centre back, Philippe Sandler, he's only 20. They've got a very good defensive record. Even the goalkeeper Boer, he left Ajax to go back to Pek Zwolle, and he's doing excellently since he's been there. At AZ, Alireza Johan Bakash on the right hand side, he's a winger who just got recently linked to Napoli, who are meant to be keeping an eye on him. And even a left back, Thomas Ulian, the young under 21 international, he's coming for Haps and he's doing really well so far.
Yeah, Thomas Ulian, a very typical Dutch left back, very attacking. Used to be a midfielder, I believe. Yeah, Pek Zwolle are one that annoy me as well, because when I do predictions every week, they seem to annoy me because they win when I expect them to lose. But I think the run will come to an end soon. They struggle to break down teams, but their defence is just very strong at the moment, and it's just helped them see out results. I think one last question we'll have then, before we finish, will be from Jordan. What's the view on the artificial pitches? Will they be banned from next season? Ajax put out a statement this week which says we would like artificial pitches to be banned. They are actually injuring players in the league. I know for one, Nikolai Jorgensen, the final striker, has been peeved by the artificial pitches. James, I know you replied to Jordan on Twitter. Would you just like to elaborate for everybody what your view is on it?
Yeah, well, if you look to take the statement from Overmars in the first instance, Ajax have released a statement where they've stated that they're not going to send any more loanees from Ajax to Eredivisie clubs that play on AstroTurf. Overmars himself has stated that he hopes that within 2 years this case will be completely fixed in terms of no more AstroTurf pitches at the highest level. But if you look at it, objectively, there's currently 7 teams in the Eredivisie that have AstroTurf pitches, and if you go down into the Jupiler League, there's 11 teams that have AstroTurf pitches. It also comes down to money, where the budgets that the clubs have, they're not always conducive to making sure that they can have grass pitches where they might choose AstroTurf. Because also here in the Netherlands, if you're a professional club and if your books don't match and your accounts don't match up, you can receive warnings where if you don't adhere to the advice given to you by the Dutch FA, you can eventually be threatened with your licence being revoked and your team is put back to the amateurs, amateur football. And I think a lot of clubs are looking to cut their cloth accordingly, and you can understand them doing that. But if you turn it around to the player's point of view, like you just said about Jorgensen, I remember seeing I think it was Huntelaar's reaction after the I think it was the win in Venlo, where he stated that it's like playing on a concrete, it's like playing on AstroTurf, according to Huntelaar, was like playing on a concrete pitch with a plastic film on it, in terms of how a sliding tackle is made, in terms of how a player even falls from an aerial challenge. And I think players are becoming very very wary of playing on AstroTurf in this day and age, especially in the Netherlands.
Well, guys, I think that seems to be it for this week. So if you've made it to the end of the podcast, well done. We hope to have a new podcast for you very soon. But don't forget as well, if you're subscribed to us on YouTube, there'll be new videos very soon. And I know James has an interview coming up soon with Jeffrey Helvaleu, the Augsburg defender. So there's plenty to look forward to from Football-Oranje. Thanks, Michael, and thanks, James.
You're welcome.